Okay, so let's talk about a pretty unsettling idea. What if chaos isn't random? What if it can be designed? And what if our own perceptions can be turned into a weapon? Today, we're going to break down a framework for control that works almost invisibly, and we'll do it through the lens of a really tragic political event. It all starts with a moment that just shatters the norm, a breaking point in American politics, the public assassination of a very prominent and, let's be honest, a very polarizing young activist, an event that sent absolute shockwaves through a country that was already feeling pretty fractured.
The scene was just one of total confusion and panic. Charlie Kirk, who was a super influential young conservative voice, was shot and killed right in the middle of a speech at Utah Valley University. And this happened in front of thousands of his followers. And the thing is, this wasn't just some isolated incident. You have to see it as part of a much bigger and, frankly, alarming trend of rising political violence. We're talking assassination attempts on other major figures, physical assaults. There's this growing feeling that our political conversation has just become completely unsustainable. So this tragedy forces us to ask a really critical question. How can a moment of pure fear and division also become a powerful tool? A tool for people who aren't looking to heal things, but to control them. To really wrap our heads around that, we need to zoom way out. We've got to look at a specific framework for basically changing an entire nation's perception of reality. It's a process, and it's called ideological subversion. Now, this concept was laid out by a former KGB defector named Yuri Bezmenov, and he described it as a long-term psychological game. The goal? To dismantle a society from the inside out, to conquer it without ever firing a shot, simply by making people unable to tell what's true and what isn't. And Bezmenov laid out this chillingly methodical four-stage process. You can think of it like a playbook. Each step is designed to do just one thing, to slowly, methodically walk a society from a place of stability to one of complete top-down control. And when you look at this timeline, wow, it shows you just how patient this strategy is. It all kicks off with demoralization, a process that takes 15 to 20 years, an entire generation, to basically erode a nation's core values. This makes the population unable to process facts, even when they're staring them right in the face. It perfectly sets them up for the next, much faster stages. So you might be wondering, how is this even possible, right? Well, this playbook doesn't just work in a vacuum. It works because it taps into some really fundamental and often totally unconscious parts of human psychology. And this isn't some new idea. Decades ago, a guy named Edward Bernays, who's basically the father of public relations, was shockingly open about this. He called it an invisible government, where a small group of people who understand how group psychology works can basically control the public mind by hitting our emotions and instincts, not our rational brains. And right here, this is the core vulnerability that this entire strategy exploits. See, when we strongly identify with a group, any group, political, social, whatever, our own individual critical thinking starts to take a backseat. The most important thing stops being the search for truth, and it becomes about protecting the group. So, what's the most powerful emotion you can use to manipulate people? It's fear. Simple as that. As one source puts it, no passion so effectually robs the mind of all its powers of acting and reasoning as fear. A population that's afraid doesn't think. It reacts. And a population that just reacts is very, very easy to lead. And that fear gets channeled through the oldest trick in the book, divide and conquer. You intentionally create or just pour gasoline on conflicts between different groups. This makes rational debate impossible, it weakens everybody, and most importantly, it distracts everyone from what the people actually pulling the strings are up to. Now take all of these principles that are, decades, even centuries old, and you supercharge them with modern technology. Every single app, every platform on your phone is locked in this constant, brutal war for one thing: your attention. And the algorithms that basically run our digital world, they've learned a simple lesson. Outrage is one of the best ways to grab our attention. What does that mean? It means our news feeds are often literally designed to make us angry, because anger drives clicks, shares, and, profit. Okay, so let's zoom back in. Let's apply this whole playbook to what happened with Charlie Kirk. This is where all that theory becomes terrifyingly real.
The intense chaos and fear that followed the assassination create the perfect storm for what Bezmenov's framework calls the crisis stage. It's that moment where society feels like it's breaking, like it just can't function anymore. And this is the key psychological flip. A population that's gripped by fear doesn't want a debate or a nuanced discussion. It starts to crave a savior, a strong leader who promises to bring back order, to make them safe, to crush the enemy, no matter what the cost. And just recently, some breaking news. The authorities now have a suspect in custody. But the story doesn't end there. Not at all. It just pivots. The raw chaos of a manhunt is now replaced by a much more focused opportunity for control. You can already see how the arrest gets framed. First, it validates the need for a strong government, right? See? Decisive action works. Then, the suspect's identity, whatever it ends up being, becomes a perfect tool to demonize an entire group, hardening that us versus them mindset. And finally, that fear that's still hanging in the air is used to justify more state power, more surveillance, all in the name of keeping you safe, of course. So how do we even begin to guard against this? It all starts with just recognizing the playbook when you see it in action. Understanding how any crisis, whether it's real or manufactured, can become the perfect excuse for more control. You can see this clear pattern emerge. Some people call it the problem-reaction-solution cycle. A problem, like political violence, creates a reaction from the public, fear, that then allows for a pre-planned solution, like increased state power, that often serves an agenda that was there long before the crisis ever happened. Look, just being aware of these mechanisms is the huge first step. It's about taking a breath before you react and asking some simple, critical questions. Who benefits if I feel this way? Is this story trying to inform me, or is it just trying to get a rise out of me? And that really leaves us with one last massive thought. In a world where our very perception of reality is the main target, where it's the primary battlefield, then protecting the truth and our own ability to see it might just be the most important and the most radical thing we can possibly do.